Um, mm-mm, okay. Mm-mm. I think, yeah, I think that was a good time. Yeah, okay. Uh, Back from wherever I was. Hi. Hello. I'm gonna keep today's stream a bit quick and brief to say. Um, so what I want to take a look at today is a certain organization that kind of came into my interest because of a certain VTuber, specifically the VTuber who kind of brought this organization into my view is a VTuber named Root, which is a VTuber that wanted to donate to this organization a little while back during a very controversial time, at least in the online landscape. So, VTuber named Root wanted to donate to the organization, to the pro trans organization called Mermaids. But due to backlash against this org, she retracted her intention to donate to them. Okay, so now that we have some background out of the way, what I am interested, yeah, what the principal interest is for today, or what specifically makes this a worthwhile topic to look into, is why this organization received backlash. Figure out why this organization is so controversial. I do not spell that, but who cares? Okay, so now that we have the main, I don't know, main topic of discussion out of the way, it's about time we try to, do some background work into figuring out what is so controversial about mermaids. Hmm. Give me 1 second. Let me try to look up some of the backlash towards this tweet in particular. Mm, mm, hmm, hmm, hmm. Okay, I found something. I found something. Okay, so take a look at this particular tweet here. This image that this individual shared, right, is an article that alleges a trustee of the organization having a link to a pedophile group. Now, text behind that accusation, surely it must have come from somewhere. And if we were to check the other quote retweets on that post, there are a lot more accusations too, pertaining to mermaids' connections to pedophiles. People. Between a trustee now, what does this mean? Let's get some background on what Mermaids is, like what the charity does. So looking at this on the Wikipedia page for Mermaids, it reads Mermaids is a British charity and advocacy organization that supports gender variant and transgender youth. It also provides inclusion and diversity training. Mermaids was founded in 1995 by a group of parents of gender non-conforming children and became a charitable organization in 2015. Its history, or its formation and leadership: Mermaid was founded in 1995 by a group of parents of gender non-conforming children, originally as a small helpline. It aims to provide support for transgender youth up to 20 years of age. So, one thing to take note of is that the charity's roots are tied to a young demographic. Mermaids became a charitable incorporated organization in 2015. Susie Green was the chief executive officer in 2016 until 25th of November 2022, when she resigned. Previously worked as an IT manager at the Citizens Advice Bureaus in Leeds. Green was a trustee of Mermaids for 4 years from 2011. Her daughter is one of the youngest individuals in the UK to have transitioned surgically. Lauren Stoner was made interim chief executive in December 2022 and was appointed CEO for 2 years in February 2024. In August 2023, it was announced that Belinda Bell would be stepping down as chair of the charity while remaining as a trustee. Catherine Downs, who is transgender, became chair in 2024 February. Now, the rest of this is mostly just background stuff. But we can read through that. It doesn't seem too long. The Tavistock Gender Identity Development Service. In the years from 2000, Mermaids, alongside another campaign group, Gender Identity Research and the Gender Identity and Research Education Society, lobbied clinicians at NHS Gender Identity Development Service to allow children access to early treatments such as puberty blockers. Okay. The organization seems to be a very pro-trans healthcare, or tends to have has a very pro-trans healthcare doctrine. I say doctrine or interest. Either or works, but doesn't really make much of a difference considering the context. Okay. Where were we? Yeah, we're here. After taking her child to Boston, Massachusetts in 2007 to receive puberty blockers, Susie Green worked to make them available in Britain from GIDS, that's the NHS. In response, the NHS began prescribing puberty blockers from 2011 onwards, making them widely available in response to demands from families. Green said, "We don't have any say on how they operate, how they prescribe, what they do in terms of the process." The then CEO has no influence, no, has no impact, no, has no direct influence on the NHS's management of puberty blockers. Despite being a leading figurehead in its adoption. That is to say that this organization likely has had at least some historical impact on the general perspective or the general medical field when it comes to trans healthcare. In July 2022, the NHS England decided to close GIDS and replace it with regional healthcare services following the publication of the independent CAS review. In response to the decision, Mermaids CEO Susie Green was cautiously optimistic but expressed concerns that priority would be given to mental health over medical care. She said, "We would not want any further barriers to be put in place in terms of access to medical intervention." Online harassment of staff. In 2017, Mermaids reported that it and its volunteers had been the victims of online harassment. CEO Susan Green stated that she had been falsely accused of forcibly castrating her transgender daughter, Jackie. Her daughter maintained that if my mom had not helped me, I would not be here today. The transgender journalist Paris Lees wrote, "Susie Green is saving lives, and I wish my parents had known about mermaids when I was growing up." Green raised concerns that the social media backlash may put people off coming to the charity for help. This is true. Of their online controversy. Obviously, the first and only thing I know of this organization does raise a lot of concern, but that's because that's what I heard online. And any reasonable person would have some suspicions. But then again, it is what it is. National lottery funding. In December of 2019, the charity has allocated £500,000 in funding by the Big Lottery Fund to create a national network of local groups. However, funding was put under review after criticism of the charity, including by anti-trans activists Graham George Linehan. He seems interesting. Who created a post on Mumsnet calling for members of the forum to email their concerns to the National Lottery. In response to this, on the 18th of January 2029, YouTuber H Bomber Guy began live streaming, attempting to 101 complete the video game Donkey Kong 64 with the grand total with a goal of 500 to be donated to mermaids. The stream was popular and raised over 300,000 for mermaids, among other guests. The stream featured appearances by American politician Alexandria Osaio, I can't read that, on the 19th of February 2020. 2019. The National Lottery concluded its review into the charity and announced that it would follow through with its promised donation, stating that it did not find any grounds to withhold the grant. However, in October of 2022, the National Lottery funding was paused due to the investigation by the Charity Commission. The 2018 ITV drama series Butterfly, about a young transgender girl, was substantially informed by Mermaids and its CEO, Susan Green, a consultant on the series who worked with Tony Merchant and its cast, blah 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 blah. Yeah, apparently the charity was involved with a TV drama in the UK, but was eventually dropped by the BBC at some point for whatever reason. In June of 2019, The Times revealed that they had discovered a data breach by Mermaids in which confidential emails had been made readily available through their website. The Times stated that these included names of transgender children and their parents, together with contact details and immediate medical information. That is very concerning. The newspaper reported that there were internal emails from the trustees that criticized the leadership by Susie Green, as well as criticism from parents. Mermaids issued a press release that same day acknowledging the data breach had occurred, and they had informed the ICO and had corrected the breach. The press release stated that the breach was limited to internal emails and no emails to and from families were a part of the information leaked. The Times disputed this. After an investigation, Mermaid was required to pay a $25,000 fine. Okay, and this was in 2019, and Susie Green stepped down in 2022, so it took 3 more years before she stepped down. Anyway, let's keep going. So where were we? Yeah, data breach training. Writing in the Daily Telegraph in 2020, Kim Thomas said that some pressure groups, including Safe School Alliance and Transgender Trend, have argued that some resources used by mermaids in training sessions reinforce rigid gender roles and might cause non-conforming children to identify as transgender. In contrast, Attitude quoted Kate Lister, who said that a resource is a visual representation of gender-identifying markers. At no point does anyone suggest children who act in ways that do not conform to a gender are trans. At no point does anyone suggest gay children are trans. Likewise, Mermaids released a statement saying that they have never encouraged teachers to state that tomboys should be transgender, and they do not provide classroom talks or lesson materials for schools, contrary to what has been reported in some newspapers. Following the communication of regulatory compliance case by the Charity Commission in 2022, the Department of Education removed Mermaid from its mental health and well-being resources from school. Okay. Mermaids has been removed from multiple previously supportive organizations like the BBC and whatever this place is, I forget. The Department of Education. Which is interesting. This organization seems to just have a lot of controversy. It just seems to be generally very controversial, which is what it is, I guess. What was I thinking about? I was thinking about something, but I don't remember anymore. Anyway, let's keep going. Mm, Government policy. The charity criticized the UK government's April 2022 decision to disband the LGBT advisory board without planned replacement, describing the move as very concerning. Challenged the LGBT Alliance charitable status. In June 2021, Mermaids, alongside other charities including Stonewall, began raising funds to appeal the awarding of charitable status to the LGBT Alliance, describing the latter group's activities as denigrating trans people. The case began in September 2022 and ruled in July 2023. The judges determined that the law does not permit mermaids to challenge the decision made by the Charity Commission to register the LGBT Alliance as a charity. Okay. That's interesting. Conference at Great Ormond Street Hospital. In March 2022, Susie Green, the CEO of Mermaids at the time, was due to speak on a panel regarding support for transgender youth alongside Stephanie Davis, RI of Transgender Trend, a gender critical website. The panel would have been part of an event eventually postponed for an expected 100 to 150 trainee child psychiatrists organized by Great Ormond Street Hospital and Health Education England. Pediatrician Hilary Cass, journalist Helen Joyce, and psychotherapist Stella O'Malley and academic Lisa Littman would have also participated. Following complaints to the organizers by mermaids and a trainee doctor, Davis's appearance was cancelled. Susie Green said that mermaids cannot be a part of a conference that gives a platform to transgender trend and advised organizers to stay clear of anyone involved with anti-trans pseudo-medical platforms that have been set up with the sole intention of attacking trans people, especially trans youth, and their healthcare. Davis said that it should concern everyone that the NHS has allowed unsubstantiated claims of transphobia to their own decisions. Wow, that's noisy. In September of 2022, excuse the noise. In September of 2022, Susie Green co-authored the 8th edition of the Standards of Care issued by Telegraph investigation. In September 2022, Mermaids was subject to an investigation by the Daily Telegraph, which accused the charity of offering chest binders to transgender youth without parental consent, and to have told users they believed to be as young as 13 that hormone-blocking drugs are totally reversible. The investigation relied largely on an anonymous adult pretending to be a 14-year-old named Kai. Okay, so to break down what it seems like here, let's finish reading the paragraph first. The Telegraph, masquerading as Kai, exchanged emails with the charity, during which the charity staff agreed to offer them a chest binder. The Daily Telegraph criticized the charity for not investigating the fictional child Kai's mental illness and for not requiring that Kai inform an adult, despite Kai describing their parents as unaccepting in email exchanges. Mermaids responded by saying that they take a harm reduction position with understanding that a young person with a binder and comprehensive safety guidelines from an experienced member of staff is preferable to the likely alternative of unsafe practices and or continued or increasing dysphoria. Okay, so Apparently, an investigator from the Daily Telegraph had pretended to be a child and messaged this organization, claiming that they were a transgender youth who wanted a chest binder or something, or was looking for care on how to, deal with gender dysphoria. And the charity apparently, a staff member at the charity apparently decided to help with that by giving them a chest binder and telling them that puberty blockers are reversible. I'm not sure of the medicine behind it. I'd have to do some research to at least find out if that is the case. But I think hiding such information from parents, it is what it is, depending on the context. 2022, the Charity Commission opened a regulatory compliance case into Mermaids based on complaints made at the charity as a result of the Daily Telegraph's investigation. Mermaid was subsequently submitted a number of serious incident reports to the Commission in relation to issues raised by the media, and also closed its helpline temporarily due to what was described as intolerable abuse received by the staff and volunteers. Funding from the National Lottery has been paused during this investigation. On the 2nd of December 2022, it was announced that the Charity Commission had opened a statutory inquiry into the charity's management, and governance would now be looked at. The Charity Commission said that the opening of the inquiry was not a finding of wrongdoing. This was followed by the resignation of Susie Green. As of July 2024, the inquiry is still ongoing, and Mermaids said that this was significantly impacting to our services, staff, and volunteer well-being, our reputation, and our finances, which is true, because a lot of people think Mermaids is a sketchy organization, most likely because of such investigations and such media portrayal. Resignation of a trustee. In October of 2022, Dr. Jacob Burslow of the London School of Economics resigned as a trustee of Mermaids after it was revealed that he had spoken at a conference organized by Before You Act, a pedophile support group, as a PhD student in 2011. In a statement, Mermaids described the organization as completely at odds with its values, and said that once notified, we took swift and decisive action to investigate. Safeguarding is of the utmost importance to mermaids, and safety of well-being. And the safety of the young people we support is our highest priority. Belina Bell, the chair of trustees, apologized for the distress caused by the news of Burslow's links to the group. And said that he would never have been appointed to the board. In October of 2022, Mariam Cates, MP, used Prime Minister's questions to ask for a police investigation into Mermaids. In response, the charity said that her attitudes towards LGBTQ organizations are well documented, and this is not the first time she has criticized Mermaids. Okay, that's a lot of information to unpack there. Generally, an organization under lots of scrutiny. I don't know how to spell that, so let's just put that. That should work. But yeah, generally the organization seems to be very much frequently criticized and looked into for what seems to be reasonable suspicions. But then again, it is what it is. So let us take a deeper look into what exactly the issue with Mermaids is. This guy here, what's his face? Jacob Breslow. He seems to be the source of the accusations of a link to pedophilia or pedophiles. So we have to now question Why exactly is Dr. Jacob here linked to pedophilia? And they say it's because he spoke at a conference organized by the Before You Act. But you see, Before You Act isn't, yeah, they kind of work to prevent child sexual abuse. Though they are pedophiles, keep that in mind. It's I think I've talked about it on stream at some point in the past. But Before You Act is a really good resource for researchers when looking into pedophile behavior and trends. But that does not mean the organization is this. It's kind of like an organization that claims to be made up of virtuous pedophiles who are Before You Act is an org made up of virtuous pedophiles, which means that it's an organization made up of people or pedophiles who claim to be opposed to interactions with children and generally try to excuse the noise in the background, generally try to not harm children, right? Very anti-child molestation. But then again, it is still a very controversial organization by virtue of being made up of almost exclusively pedophiles. So, Jacob Burslow, let's take a look at him. Is the screen there? Yeah, screen's there. Jacob Burslow is an American academic and independent scholar. He was an associate professor of gender and sexuality in the Department of Gender Studies at the London School of Economics until he resigned in 2023, claiming harassment that he was part of a broader movement against the field of gender studies and against trans rights and dignity. In 2022, he resigned from the transgender charity Mermaids after it emerged that he had spoken at a conference, at the Before You Act conference, an organization that provides support to pedophiles. He completed his PhD at the London School of Economics Gender Institute in 2016 and published his first monograph entitled Ambivalent Childhoods in 2021 through the University of Minnesota Press, in which he analyzed childhood in relation to blackness, transfeminism, queerness, and deportability. What does deportability mean? He was previously an LEC teaching fellow in transnational sexuality and gender. He participated in queer youth activism for almost a decade prior to beginning his PhD, which led him to study the Me Too movement, homo nationalism, and incarceration. Burslow soon became an expert on contemporary US social justice movements and the ways in which the idea of childhood operates within and against them, including the Black Lives Matter movement, transfeminism, queer youth activism, and anti-deportation movements. This is all shit I don't care about. Let's just move on to controversy. A former trustee of the transgender children's charity, Mermaid, Burslow is an active critic of gender-critical viewpoints. Given a January 2022 lecture at the University of Cambridge entitled Sex is Real and Other Gender-Critical Non-Sequiturs, a turf grammar book. He quit Mermaid a year later when gender-critical campaigns publicized that as a graduate student, he had spoken at a conference in 2011 organized by Before You Act, an organization founded in 2013, blah, 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 a clinical social worker, and Michael something, a convicted child abuser. Wow. Which provides support to pedophiles. In an abstract for that talk, he argued in favor of recognizing pedophilia as a sexual or political identity. The quote goes as follows. Allowing a form of non-diagnosable minor attraction is exciting, as it potentially creates a sexuality or political identity by which activists, scholars, and clinicians can begin to better understand minor attracted persons. He further states that just as the desire to and the act of coming on a shoe requires a rethinking of the shoe. I want to now argue that desire to and the act of coming on, or possibly with a child, requires a rethinking of both the child and the person of whom the child is a sexual fantasy or partner. Profound words a profound thinker, way ahead of his time. After an independent investigation by the London Society of Economics, I think it's called. Society of Economics, who cares? Yeah. The independent, yeah, what was I saying? Yeah. The school stated that in January 2023, that the independent investigator found that there was no basis for the school to take action against the individual. That, depending on what he said in that interview, this would make sense. Because simply attending a conference simply attending a conference at for the B4U Act doesn't seem like something that should be controversial. I mean, if you are a clinician or if you are in the mental health space, pedophiles are a very interesting resource to look into, at least at some point. But that aside, Breslow released a statement in October 6, 2022, that is before he... When did he... When did he step down from... Yeah, in October is when he stepped down. This is a statement in October regarding his participation at the Before You Act conference when he was an early PhD student. I unequivocally condemn child sexual abuse. My work is about protecting marginalized children and young people, not exposing them to harm. It was my understanding in 2011 that Before You Act was an organization that promotes treatments to prevent offending by pedophiles. I believed at the time that the purpose of that conference was to enable better treatments and interventions to prevent harm to children. I would not have attended the synopsum otherwise. I have not been affiliated with Before You Act since. I decided to resignate as a trustee of Mermaids, as I did not want to distract from the good work the charity is doing to help transgender and gender diverse children. Mermaids remains the subject of investigation by the Charity Commission for alleged safeguarding failures. Okay. Interesting enough. So, his controversy was attending a Before You Act conference when he was an early PhD student. Okay. So it seems like his ties, from at least what we know now, is his ties to pedophilia aren't really there. It's more so just people being worried over a guy who talked with pedophiles at some point, working with children, which the source of that panic is reasonable enough to a certain degree. But I think we should check particularly the interviews he went through. Like, what did he say at the interviews that was so controversial that he just had to resign at that point? What is I saying? I was thinking about something, but I forgot. Why would I do that? Anyway, back to the discussion at hand. This is the Daily Telegraph's publication on their investigation into mermaids. Charity potentially dangerous chest flattening devices to a 14-year-old against their parents' wishes in an investigation. I am not going to subscribe to the Telegraph, but we already know what they said. We already know Yeah, chest binding has been described as, let's, why is this taking up like half the screen? Evidence, blah 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 blah. Chest binding has been described by parents groups as a form of self-harm, and it can cause breathing difficulties and chronic back pain, changes to the spine, and broken ribs. Now, chest binding or chest binders. Give me a second. Let me not look this up on screen. Chest binders. Okay. So let me take a look at this. Okay, so this is what a chest binder looks like. And I think it kind of reminds me of what are those things called? Corsets in a certain way. Right, a corset is kind of to like shapewear generally. And these things, I'm pretty sure they're kind of tight. They're not like flexible, I think. I'm pretty sure they're not. It's not like a vest or something. Kind of like holds. It's kind of like it's shapewear, so it kind of holds you in place. I can see how extended use could cause breathing problems or back pain, but I think I think the fear of it is kind of overblown. But then again, providing a child any kind of materials without their parents' knowledge or consent, especially a child as young as 13, would generally be considered kind of questionable, to say the least. Now, the BBC reported that a Mermaids Charity quit over pedophile group links, right? So this is about Jacob Brislow. Dr. Jacob Brislow quit the transgender charity after the Times revealed that he attended a Before You Act conference in 2011. The Before You Act calls for pedophiles to have rights to live in trust and dignity. Mermaids says the organization is completely at odds with its values. Before You Act's website says it holds workshops and gives presentations about the needs and rights of people with an attraction to children and adolescents, and runs support groups for both of them, and friends and family members. A published summary of a presentation Dr. Breslow is understood to have given uses the phrase minor attracted persons instead of pedophile. Dr. Breslow is an associate professor of gender and sexuality at the London School of Economics. LSE said, "We have been made aware of the presentation. I'm looking into this report. I still don't understand why exactly this is considered controversial. I mean, who else would attend these kind of conferences if not a PhD student trying to learn? Or, I don't know, a pedophile trying to find a support group or something? But yeah, it doesn't seem particularly controversial." The transgender children's charity said Mermaids has been made aware of Dr. Breslow's historical participation in a conference, and this is completely at odds with our values. Once notified, we took swift and decisive actions to investigate. Dr. Breslow tendered his notice on the same day as the investigation, so it seems like they didn't really investigate anything. They just kind of deemed him too much of a liability, it seems. Not too unreasonable, but seems a bit fidgety. We will be reviewing our processes and procedures in light of this event to make them more robust. BBC News approach up to Swiss level convoys unavailable at time of publishing. I still don't get what exactly he did being so abhorrent, because from the interviews of what we've read so far, we have no indication as to what his opinions are on pedophilia or whatever. More so, we only know he attended the conference, which in and of itself shouldn't be considered a negative thing, at least in my opinion. Wow, that's loud. Another shocking scandals at Mermaids. Why did the trustee of a trans give a presentation at a pedophile aid? Did he give a presentation or did he attend? Those are two different things. At a pedophile aid event. Mermaids, a charity of transgender youth, continues to unravel before our eyes. Last night, one of its trustees resigned. A Times investigation found that we already know this. Pedophile aid group, Dr. Bislow, Doctor of Gender and Sexuality, was founded by Rich, whoever the fuck, and a convicted pedophile. Excuse me for my harsh language. At the Times, to break the stigma surrounding pedophilia, it stresses on its website that pedophiles often show a desire to protect children and make them happy. Before you act consistently refers to attraction to minors as a sexuality, and Brislow's talk titled Sexual Alignment, blah 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 blah, Foundation and the DSM-5 took up precisely this theme. Questions have also been raised about Brislow's research more broadly. His LSE profile describes his research interest as the queer life of children's desires. One chapter of his 2021 book, Ambivalent Childhoods, titled Desiring the Child, describes a real life instance of a 12-year-old boy dancing provocatively in front of a crowd. Brislow writes that the boy's movements mimic. I don't think YouTube cares if I say that word. Sex acts, repeating the easily citational gestations of pelvic thrusts. While onlookers condemned the child's dancing as inappropriate, for Breslow, the child's dancing was evidence that queer children had desires of their own. I think I kind of get where the controversy is coming from now. Statements like that don't really land well with anybody, to be honest, and for very good reason. But that aside, let's keep reviewing this document or this publication. All of this sickening output was produced before Bislow became a Mermaids Trustee in July of this year. This raises serious questions. Why did it take a Times investigation for Mermaids to notice or take action? It would be a profound understatement to say that this is bad timing for Mermaids, which is currently under an investigation for something else. The Times puberty blocker investigation. Mermaids runs an online chat room for 12 to 15-year-olds where moderators are alleged to be giving advice to young people on how to raise money for hormone blocking drugs and how best to take testosterone. One moderator even congratulated a user who had decided they were transgender and wanted all the surgeries at the age of 13. So was also careless in its interaction treatment. Of trans youth. A separate Times investigation also found that moderators gave their approval to teenagers users moving their discussions about experimental drug treatments and transitioning to less moderated platforms such as Okay, now I get the controversy. Well, in case you weren't aware, it's a terrible idea to have any kind of healthcare, any kind of like healthcare communication system, and then move whatever communication you're having with patients or people at risk to like secondary platforms. Like you don't DM your patients, right? You don't DM at-risk individuals. That is a big no-no. Yeah, they moved to Discord. Users signing up for the official Mermaids forum are even advised to use an email address that their primary caregivers have no access to. The sign-up process requires no age verification, even though the site claims to be exclusively for 12 to 15-year-olds. All of this has raised yet more concerns in safeguarding. Yeah, so just generally being careless. Mermaids was also set up to help children struggling with their gender identity. How grimly ironic that it now has so many questions about how it has safeguarded those children. Okay, interesting. Let's read this article now. A trustee of whatever the fuck talked to. I am not paying a cent to read a newspaper. Yeah, no, piss off. Anyway, that should be about it for the most part, except for this last page that I wanted to open. Before You Act has been criticized for its I don't know what this word is, language regarding pedophilia using the term MAPS instead of pedophiles. In 2022, a member of the transgender charity, blah 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 blah. Yeah, so generally, to summarize, Mermaids is controversial because of many factors. Mermaids is a very controversial charity, so it kind of makes sense why the initial argument, Fruit, the VTuber, didn't end up donating to them, specifically because of concerns brought up by other users about how the organization is linked to pedophilia. Now, the organization itself, from what I have seen, does not seem to have a direct link to any pedophilic behavior. Haven't really, like, the Discord mod stuff is a red flag, definitely, and it's definitely a breach of some ethical code or whatever ethical regulations, right? You can't be talking with people like that in private messaging forums. It seems to be more so a very careless organization with a lack of regard for ethical safety, and generally it's going to end up being in even more hot water in the future, from what I predict. Now, I don't think for a second that this charity is I don't think for a second that this charity is like entirely free from criticism. There is a lot of criticism to be given to them, especially because of how they've handled cases in the past, or sorry, not cases, handled controversy in the past. But I would not go as far as to say the organization is inherently problematic, but they really just aren't helping their case with the way they treat, especially because the organization deals specifically with minors, so it's bound to go to at least have some issues, right? It's bound to at least come up with some problems, if they're not being particularly careful with what they do or how they interact with transgender youth, especially because transgender youth tend to be a very volatile population that do need special consideration and special kind of, not say special treatment, more care when being treated, because things can go south very quickly. Now, I think that holding off donations from them, at least for the time being, is a reasonable choice. But again, it is what it is, like I always say. So that today's short stream should be over. I've looked into mermaids a bit, but then again, there could always be more in the background, and it would be interesting to learn more. But yeah, mermaids is controversial for certain reasons that aren't unreasonable, and I don't know. It is what it is, and that is what it is. So bye. Wow. Also, before I disappear into the void once more, I don't know why, I just don't stream as often as I should. I will try. I mean, every time I say that, I always disappear for like a month. But consistency is good for health. It's good for your health. But yeah, I'll try to read more and study more and learn more and then come back and yap more on stream when I have the time to do so. But maybe I should make another video about something. I'm thinking body dysmorphia. But who cares? By the time I come out with that, it'll be out. So bye.